Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where normally we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. Not today. Not really today. So welcome to Predators Proclivity. I am your host, Preston Proctor. This is a special edition playoff preview. Now, I am recording this on Thursday morning, so all of the games are not done. Some of the matchups, some of the teams that are in the playoffs, they've still got one more game to play. And the dates and times of the matchups have not quite yet been decided. The first two games are going to be Saturday. The Saturday, Winnipeg and Dallas will play their games, and the rest of it will be determined later on today. And I did get an email from the Kings organization last night. They are planning on their first game being either Sunday or Monday. They're not sure. Their second game would be Wednesday. They had the schedule for the rest of it, but did not have the first game wasn't hammered out yet. So I'm not sure why. That isn't more deterministic, especially for like the Kings in Edmonton, whom we've known were going to play each other and knew the order of for a few days here. But that's how it goes. Last night, Montreal managed to find a way to win, beating Carolina, and they are the final playoff team in the mix. That took a while for them to get to that point. My nephew, who plays down here on Broadway, went to school in Columbus. He's from Ohio. He went to school in Columbus, some music or some, a smaller school. Got a degree in drumming, or that's not what the degree was, but basically he went to school to learn how to be a better drummer. 4 years, and he's a really good drummer. But he spent a lot of time in Columbus, and so he's a Blue Jacket fan. So I think those of you who listen, we like to take him to the games when Nashville is playing Columbus, because every time we take him, Columbus loses, and so that's for 4 years we've had really good luck with that. He hates it, but we do enjoy going to the games together, and we pay for his ticket, so he doesn't have to. At least he's not shelling out a bunch of bucks for that. But hey, But Columbus didn't make it in. Very exciting. They made a great run. They still play one of the teams that plays tonight, but that game, for them at least, is not meaningful. Well, from a playoff standpoint, I guess it's still always meaningful. Anyhow, so that is those are the teams. The teams are now set. So everything else the same as yesterday, except now we know that Washington is going to be playing Montreal. Fun. All right. Well, as far as the Preds go, that was a great game last night. Apologies to all fans. It's our fault. That first goal, all our fault. My wife, we're going out of town this weekend. My wife had to get things ready for her calculus class. She teaches high school math, and she had to be ready for today, and didn't get everything done before we needed to leave in order to be there for puck drop. And so we were late, and they scored before we even got within 2 blocks. Dallas scored before we got even 2 blocks. And so we consider it to be our fault, because as long as we were in the arena, the Preds did great. So it had to be our fault, right? Anyhow, yeah, way to go, Preds. We came back and won the first period, didn't get the first goal, won the second period, and, win 2 periods, you win the game. So there you go. Not exactly sure what Dallas is doing. I know a number of their players were back. I noticed that Seguin, maybe I'm saying that wrong. I think I heard the announcer saying it differently. He was playing. A couple of the defensemen that were being rested were playing. So it looked like they had a pretty fair complement of people. And then Ottinger, their starting goaltender, was in goal. And boy, I'm telling you, that was not Ottinger's fault. There was the Marchmont's goal. He was standing by himself on the edge of the full strength. It was not a power play, standing by himself on the edge of the crease with the puck on the other side, and then they got the puck to him and just nailed it in there. There's nothing Ottinger can do about that, and that was true of a number of goals because we were being able to pass the puck at will in front of the goaltender, which is the fault of the Dallas defenseman. Not sure, but yeah. So Dallas is going in with a 7-game losing streak, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, really worried about Dallas now. Really worried about Dallas. Okay, so no new transactions. Mark Delgaizo was in the game last night. So I guess now all over. Now he can really go down to Milwaukee. They've put him on waivers twice, and he stayed in Nashville. But I guess it cleared waivers a couple of times, and that always worries me. One of our unrestricted free agents at the end of the year, Group 6, he'll be 25 at the end of this year, or at the 25, what is it? I forget the date, sometime in June, when the NHL records your date, your age for that year. It's sometime in June, I think, whenever the playoffs would be over, which the season would be over. So then your age, when your age at that time is be your age for that season. So I think that's how they do it. So they're kind of looking forward and saying whatever age you are on June, let's say 16th, is the age that you are. And that's it's instrumental. That's why he's in the Group 6, I think. Group 6 unrestricted free agent as opposed to a regular unrestricted free agent. Just has not exactly sure the underworkings of all of the NHL processes and whatnot. I think because he's a younger player, entry-level contract, maybe he's 25 is the place where he can break into the unrestricted free agent market. Something like that would be my guess, but I'm not sure. Sorry for my rambling on that, but trying to understand all of that a little bit more. But there's a lot of things that go into that, and this is not my day job. I just kind of find this stuff fascinating. So yeah. Anyway, that's about it. He'll head to Milwaukee now. Milwaukee's last game of the season, I think, is tomorrow, and then the Calder Cup will start. Milwaukee leading their division, and if I'm guessing I'm not sure if they lose tomorrow night, whether they still will be the top seed in their division. But either way, they are making it to the Calder Cup. And so Stastny's back down there, and then a number of other players. Delgaizo will join them. So they have some firepower coming down to help Milwaukee to try to win the Calder Cup, which is great. As far as the playoffs go, I think I did get something wrong the other day. I mentioned a reordering, and the NHL no longer reorders. You play within the division, and so even though both wildcard teams are coming out of in the West, both wildcard teams are coming out of the Central. The divisional teams all play each other, and then it's kind of one team comes out of both divisions. It could be a wild card. It could be a wild card team from the other division comes out, but that's how it goes. They start out top of the division plays wild card. Top of the conference plays wild card 2. The second divisional winner plays wild card 1, and the 2 and 3s in both divisions play each other, and then the winners of the 2 and 3 plays the winners of the 1 and wild card matchup, and then they meet each other. So there's no reordering. The format is 2x2 by 1-1-1, so that the team with the better record has home ice advantage. There was a feeling that the 2-3-2 format had a flaw in it, that if the team with a lower seed won one of the first 2 games, since they got 3 at home, they got home ice flipped. And so by going 2-2, 1-1-1, that eliminates any sort of home ice flipping. It may not help that other team, but it keeps the home ice in that situation. I'm sure the 2-3-2, there's a lot less travel. A lot less trouble. What do we got? Toronto and Ottawa, Washington, Montreal, Tampa Bay and Florida. Whoa, there's so much travel involved in that one. But Winnipeg, St. Louis, maybe not the easiest. Some of these could be really bad, like if Florida were playing Vancouver. That's a long flight. Anyway, so that's the format. In the Eastern Conference, we do have Washington versus Montreal, Toronto versus Ottawa, Tampa Bay versus Florida. That is a rematch from last year. Last year, Tampa Bay was the wild card 1, and Florida was the Atlantic top seed. This year, they both they moved up. They moved 2. Tampa Bay went up 2 to the Atlantic 2, and Florida went down 2 to the Atlantic 3. They're playing each other, and last year Florida won 4-1. And then in the final matchup, Carolina versus the Devils. In the Western Conference, Winnipeg versus St. Louis. That game will be Saturday. The first game will be Saturday. And then we've got Vegas and Minnesota. Dallas and Colorado also will be played on Saturday. And then we've got the Kings and Edmonton, which is another rematch from last year, but they swapped spots. Last year, Edmonton was the second in the Pacific, and the Kings were third. And this year, the Kings are second, and Edmonton is third, which is good for the Kings because they've got an excellent home record and a terrible road record. But they did just beat Edmonton in Edmonton a couple games ago, so that so the Kings are looking pretty good in that matchup. Breaking it down a little bit more, I guess we'll start with the Eastern Conference. It's alphabetical. Washington versus Montreal. They have met 3 times this year. And Washington won 2 of those games. Montreal did win the last one in overtime. That game was in January, so they played at the end of October, the beginning of December, and then the beginning of January. So these 2 teams have not met each other in a while. Washington does play tonight. They are 4-5 in their last 9, so they got one more coming in tonight. And Montreal 7-1-2. That seems crazy because it's taken them so long to get to this point. But yeah, I guess overall Washington is 4-6, and in the last 10, 4-5 in the last 9, and Montreal 7-1-2. So that looks pretty good. Montreal's road record, not so stunning, 17-19-5. Their home record, 23-12-6, is pretty decent. Washington has a good record in both situations, 26-9-6 at home, 25-12-3. So like 3-1 wins to losses at home, and then 2-1 on the road. So that looks like a Washington win. It's kind of hard to see Montreal do anything else, and I've got them in 5. I will go through my predictions for last year, and let you know how I did last year. Last year, I did better than I thought I did, at least as far as picking who was going to win. One mistake I made last year, and I haven't made this mistake yet this year, is picking an upset. I picked an upset last year, and it didn't come through, and I don't remember why, but that one I got wrong, and this year I haven't really picked any upsets, and so it worries me. It worries me a little bit. So Washington in 5 there, Toronto and Ottawa. Toronto is the higher seed. Toronto is the Atlantic 1. They're number 2 in the Eastern Conference. They're playing Ottawa, who is the wild card 1 team, but they're 6th in the conference, and Ottawa has owned Toronto. They beat Toronto in Toronto 3-0 back in November, 2-1 in January, and then in the middle of March, 4-2. So Ottawa has played really well against Toronto. So that one potentially has upset on it. Toronto has really good records at home and away, 26-13-1 at home, 25-13-3. They still have a game to play. 25-13-3 away. Ottawa, a good home record, 26-11-3, and then on the road, a losing record, 18-19-4. Ottawa is coming into this game 6-2-2 in their last 10, and Toronto is 8-1-1 in their last 10. So both of these teams are doing pretty well coming in here. It's hard to say Toronto is. I got them in 5. I'm going to make an executive decision. I've talked myself into Toronto in 6. I still think it's going to be Toronto, but Ottawa just seems to be able to play them pretty well. Yeah, I like both teams. I have no reason not to like either team. Toronto, we went to a game in Toronto, had a great time. Fans were very gracious. We were wearing our Kings stuff, even though the Kings weren't playing. Very gracious. The stadium seems a little old, but the pregame display was amazing. So had a really good time there in Toronto. Ottawa, we used to work for Lockheed, had a contract working with Lockheed Canada, so I had to go up to Ottawa a couple of times, and really, that's a really nice city. Enjoyed being up there. Didn't go to a hockey game. I think I missed an opportunity because I'm pretty sure it had to be winter, because the first time I went up there, I got lost and no idea where I was at, and stopped at a Mountie station and called my coworkers, and I told them I was at the police station, and they just started laughing. So they had I was driving through a snowstorm to try to get to the office, and it wasn't going well. Now this would have been back in graduated from Georgia Tech in '89, so worked at Lockheed from '89 to '93, and that was something. That was a fun project. We were, I think that was the one where we were trying to modernize. Had a bid in to modernize the traffic signals in Atlanta. I'm pretty sure this is the one. And the Olympics were coming up, and so Atlanta wanted to modernize their traffic signals. And so I worked in the artificial intelligence branch at Lockheed, Georgia, and we teamed up with another group in Lockheed that dealt with that type of stuff. And so we put in a proposal. We were going to try to use artificial intelligence techniques to help the traffic in Atlanta flow through. And today, that would go over real well, I think. People love AI, and AI is everywhere. Yeah. And back then, not so much. Not so much. People were so afraid of AI and everything. But yeah. And anyway, that would have been a fun project. But that one didn't work out. But I did get to go to Ottawa a couple times. So, and started my series of the country. I've flown around the world. I've gone to Asia. I've been to Europe. I haven't been south of the. Well, yeah, I've been to Australia, so I've been south of the equator, but not in this hemisphere, and or haven't been or in Europe. So I guess that's my only trip south of the equator is to Australia. Well, New Zealand and Australia. The country I have the biggest problem getting in and out of, Canada. But hey, that's again, I really liked Ottawa. But yeah, so Toronto in 6. And then moving on, we've got Tampa Bay, Florida, and they split theirs. Florida. Okay, so they split, and they didn't split along home, whatever, but December 22nd and 23rd. So they had to play back-to-back games, first at Tampa Bay and then at Florida. And Florida won in Tampa Bay and Tampa won in Florida, or Sunrise. And then they played in March at Florida, and Florida won there. So Florida won in Tampa, and then Florida won in Sunrise. They won the first and third games, and Tampa Bay won the second and fourth, the fourth game being in Tampa 5-1. And that is the most recent game too, April 15th. So that was just a few days ago, kind of a bellwether there. Coming into the playoffs, Florida has not been stunning. They started out, they were leading the Atlantic Division, and they've managed to limp their way into the playoffs. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10. Tampa is 6-1-3. Tampa still has to play tonight. They've got their last game. And, so Florida has limped their way in, and I've got Tampa Bay in 6, and I'm going to stick with that. I kind of feel like I ought to drop that down to 5, but I'm going to stick with 6. I was a little flaky last year with varying the same team winning, but picking 5 or 6, and I'm not going to do that this year. I'm going to just pick a number and go with it. One thing I did do last year that I haven't done this year is it would be like with the Preds playing Vancouver. It said Vancouver in 6, but if they make it to Game 7, then Nashville would win it. So I had Vancouver in 6 or Nashville in 7, and Vancouver did win in 6. So I do consider that to be a good pick for me. And I did not doing anything like that this year. Don't know, just didn't feel right. But moving on, the last matchup in the East, Carolina and New Jersey. They also split their series 2-2. Carolina won in Raleigh 4-1. And so that was a home and home. So Carolina won the first game in October 15th in Raleigh. And actually, I don't know what town New Jersey plays in, so I can't call it out. Interesting, yeah. I have to look that up. But then in November 21st, they were at New Jersey, and New Jersey won 2-4. And then again in December 27th, in New Jersey won 2-4. And then at the next day, I guess they had to play back-to-back, December 27th and 28th, and they were at Carolina, and Carolina won 5-2. So both of those teams won at home, which is fun. Carolina has an excellent home record, 31-9-1. New Jersey, not so much, 19-17-5. New Jersey's road record, 23-16-2. Again, not the best, but Carolina has a losing record. I think maybe they've got the worst record now of any team in the playoffs because LA has somehow managed to get ahead of them. Carolina has a losing record on the road, 16-20-4. And coming into the playoffs, Carolina does play tonight. Otherwise, they are 4-5-1 in their last 10, and New Jersey is 5-5. So that neither of those inspire a lot of confidence. But the home and home series makes me believe Carolina in 6. For the Western Conference, the President's Cup winner, the Winnipeg Jets, take on the St. Louis Blues. Winnipeg, another city I'd love to go to and see a hockey game. I wouldn't mind going there when it wasn't snowy. But, yeah, Winnipeg. Love to go up to Winnipeg. Should have gotten up there when I was living in the Seattle area. We talked about it. Got close to Calgary once, but didn't even make it to Calgary. Yeah, Winnipeg playing St. Louis. Winnipeg does have the disadvantage of being the President's Cup winner, so they will probably making an early unjustified exit. Probably not against St. Louis. St. Louis had that stellar run where they win 11 or 12 games in a row, where they beat the Preds 3 times over that span, and so they shot their wad and then limped into the playoffs. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10, which is no slouch. The Winnipeg is 7-3-0. Winnipeg is 37-4 at home, 26-15-0 on the road. So they are a pretty good team everywhere they go. The Blues have a decent home record, 24-14-3, and okay away record, 20-16-5. So all of that looks pretty good. Winnipeg they played 4 times and Winnipeg won 3 times. They first met October 22nd in St. Louis. Winnipeg won 3-2. Then December 3rd in Winnipeg, St. Louis got their win 1-4. February 22nd in St. Louis went to a shootout 4-3. And then April 7th in Winnipeg won 3-1. So I think I think that I get Winnipeg in 6. That's probably Winnipeg in 5. I don't know. I kind of feel I picked 6 when I really feel like the home advantage is going to be meaningful to the road team. That one's probably going to be wrong on, but yeah, I think Winnipeg is just playing so well. And yeah, so then moving on, we got Vegas versus Minnesota. They played 3 times, and Vegas won all 3. December 15th at Minnesota, 3-2. January 12th at Vegas, 4-1. March 25th at Minnesota, 5-1. And Minnesota, talk about a team limping into the playoffs. Minnesota was one of the 2 best teams in the conference at the beginning of the season, and now here they are struggling to keep their wild card spot. So they are not playing well here at the end of the year. It's funny, years ago, when we used to watch the Kings regularly, when we lived in LA, and 2012, 2014, the Kings won the Stanley Cup in those 2 years, but historically, the Kings would start off the season good, and then November to January, they would suck. They would suck so bad. And then come February, they turn it around, February, March, April, and slip into the playoffs. And just, kind of come into the playoffs on a roll. And that's kind of what they did the years they won the Stanley Cup. All you got to do is, if you get into the playoffs, you've got a chance. And the Kings would come into the playoffs playing their best hockey. So they and then they would then they rolled through and they won both of those Stanley Cups. And that's a good scenario. Now they can only come in and they were the 8th seed both times, but they were in the playoffs and they were playing good hockey. And Jonathan Quick just absolutely stole a bunch of games. Yeah. So just stay away from my Jonathan Quick Vezina Trophy rant. But yeah, so that's kind of what you're looking at. But what Minnesota is doing is like the opposite of that. Minnesota is 5-3-2 coming into this. Vegas is 6-2-2 coming into this matchup. Vegas is a good home team, 29-9-3. A good team on the road, 21-13-7. Minnesota at home, 22-17-2. Just not great. They're actually a better, maybe a little better away team, 23-13-5. Better away team. They're pretty close, 22 wins, 23 wins. More overtime losses, but in the playoffs, the overtime loss doesn't get you a point, gets you a loss. So 23-18 versus 22-19. And then not coming into the playoffs very strong. I got Vegas in 5. I'm loath to pick a sweep, but if anything looks like it ought to be a sweep, it ought to be this one. But I'm picking Vegas in 5. I'm going to add an or 4 here because if anything is going to sweep, that would be this one. That's my feeling. Moving on, Dallas and Colorado. Colorado has been off since Sunday. They finished their season. They're sitting there watching all this hockey, hopefully getting healthy, because I think when I looked at it, they've got a lot of players that are listed as injured. Now, Dallas had a couple of people listed as injured that they were just resting, and you see what that did for them. That rest didn't do them any good. And throughout the season, Dallas does have the advantage over Colorado 1-2. Back in November 29th at Dallas won 5-3. And then January 18th, they played in Colorado, and that was a win for Colorado 6-3. And then March 16th, about a month ago, they were at Colorado again, and Colorado won 4-3 in overtime. So that is pretty tight. Dallas had such a good run earlier in the season, but they're 3-5-2 coming into the playoffs. They've lost 7 in a row, and Colorado finished the season 5-4-1, which is not stellar. Colorado, a good. Both of them are good home teams. Dallas 28-10-3, Colorado 26-12-3. And then about the same road record, actually, 22-16-3 for Dallas, 23-17-1 for Colorado. So those records are goes very close. Colorado's got one more win on the road. Dallas has 2 more wins at home. Dallas does have home ice. Dallas is not playing very good. Colorado, not stellar. I got this one going to 7. I think this one is going to go the distance, and I think Dallas is going to find their legs again in the series, but it's going to take them 7 games to beat Colorado. So Dallas in 7. In the last matchup in the West, we've got the LA Kings versus Edmonton. The Kings have a winning record against Edmonton this year, which is different than normal. Normally, Edmonton owns the Kings, and this was another rematch from last year. Edmonton was the higher seed last year, and the Kings only got 1 win against them on Edmonton's march to the finals. Now, if you've heard me before, I believe there was a thumb on that. I know the NHL loves to put their thumb on the scale for some teams at some time. Vegas in their first year obviously had the thumb. The NHL had their thumb on the trigger, a thumb on the scale. Maybe during the season, they really had it on the scale during the first series with LA. That was disgusting how that whole series played out, with Drew Doughty getting kicked out with a game to go. And I think the NHL did the same thing with Edmonton last year, trying to get Connor McDavid his Stanley Cup. Fortunately, they didn't put their thumb on the scale. If they did a little bit, but not enough to keep the Florida Panthers from winning last year. But they did help Edmonton get to the Stanley Cup, and that just annoys the crap out of me. But yeah, so back on December 28th in LA, the Kings won 4-3 in overtime. Then in January 13th, Edmonton won in Edmonton 1-0. Then they played twice in April 5th at LA. LA won 3-0. And then just on the 14th, a few days ago, in Edmonton, the Kings won 5-0. Now the Kings are coming in really good, 8-2 in their last 10. Edmonton 7-3 in their last 10. So both of that pretty good. The Kings have an amazing home record, 31-5-4. So they've got one more game to play, but 31-5-4. So the number of losses, even counting overtime losses, isn't even double digits. So I mean, basically 31-9. Right? Now they've got a game tonight. They better win that one. And then that their road record, not so much, 17-19-5. Really pathetic for a playoff team, especially the second seed in the division, really. The Edmonton's home record is good, 25-13-3, so 2-1 on the wins. Their road record, not too bad, 23-16-2, so a winning record at least. They got that advantage over the Kings. And, normally, I guess this might be the exception to prove the rule. Normally, Edmonton does have LA's number, and but I think this time the Kings are going to manage to pull it out and take the victory in 6 games. So there you have it. Washington in 5, Toronto in 6, Tampa Bay in 6, Carolina in 6, Winnipeg in 6, Vegas in 5 or 4, Dallas in 7, and the Kings in 6. So I'm predicting some good matchups here in the first round. Last year, I guessed the winner correctly in the first round. I got 6 right. I don't give myself credit for Edmonton because I said Edmonton in 6 or the Kings in 7, and Edmonton got 5. So I don't count that. I had New York over Washington in either 5 or 6, and they swept Washington. So that was 4. So I get credit for picking the winner, just not the number of games. Number of games right, only got 2 out of 8. So that I'm not good at, or at least I wasn't good at. Maybe it'll be better this year. Then Florida over Tampa Bay in 7. Florida beat Tampa Bay in 5. So I got the team right, number of games wrong. My upset was the Islanders over Carolina. And I thought the Islanders in 6, but it was Carolina in 5. I had Boston over Toronto in 5, and that game took 7. Dallas over Vancouver in 5 or 6, and that was 7. Or Vegas, sorry, Dallas over Vegas in 5 or 6. Then Vancouver in 6 or Nashville in 7. And Vancouver was 6. So I give myself credit for the winner and the games there. Did have 2 chances, but I had a lot of chances to get it all wrong too. Winnipeg over Colorado in 4 or 5, and that was 5. So I got that right. Then Edmonton in 6 or the Kings in 7. And Edmonton in 5. So there you go. Excuse me. Pretty good. The one thing I just remembered is to go back and to look at how I had my projections, and I was projecting things as far back as or tracking people's playoff positions as far back as February 12th. And, that day was interesting from a Preds standpoint because they started a winning streak there and then it out. And so just taking a look to see who would be in the playoffs and make an estimate there. I had Florida, Toronto, Tampa Bay back in December, revising here at early March, and it was still Florida, Toronto, Tampa Bay. And that shows how much Florida has fallen because it's Toronto, Tampa Bay, Florida. But Florida was 1 or 2 most of the estimates and through most of the season. Then in the Metropolitan, I had Washington, Carolina, New Jersey back in December, and it's Washington, Carolina, New Jersey. Did that? Every estimate was the same, so that's interesting. The divisional seeds were the same order for the Metropolitan as they are now, and in the Atlantic, it's the same three teams. For the wild cards, that wound up a little bit different back in December. It looked like it was going to be the Rangers and then either Boston or Philadelphia, and it's none of those three teams, that's for sure. Then back at the beginning of January, Ottawa made an appearance in the wild card spot with Boston. Then late January became Columbus and the Rangers, and stayed that way into February. And then in beginning of February, then I couldn't help myself. I did it at the beginning of February, and then I did it right before the All Nations break, Four Nations break, whatever it was called. And then I had Detroit and Ottawa at the on February 10th. Then looking at the beginning of March, it was looking like Ottawa and Columbus. And then wound up being Ottawa and Montreal. I did have Montreal as the East 10. I had them tied with the Rangers there at the end, and I guess they at least came on and got a little bit better. As far as the Western Conference goes, back in December, Minnesota, Winnipeg, Dallas were the top three. And we know that didn't work out. Minnesota barely making it into a wild card position. Vegas, the Kings, and Oilers in that order, and that's how they finished up. So two of the divisions finished exactly the same in exactly the same order as they were back in the middle of December. And three divisions had the right three teams. And the 2, 3, yeah, and only one of the divisions had two of the three, so that's something. And then that was back in December. Moving forward into January, Winnipeg was in the top spot. Minnesota had fallen to 2. I guess back in December, had Colorado and Utah as the two wild card teams, followed closely by St. Louis. And then we move into January, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Dallas, and then Vegas, the Kings and Oilers. Vegas Kings, the Oilers and Kings swapped places in late January, stayed there into March. Oh yeah, and then back at the Four Nations break, Edmonton had the top spot in the Pacific, and then they, fell out. Actually, at the beginning of March, I still had Edmonton in the second position. As far as the Central Division goes, started Minnesota, Winnipeg, Dallas, then Winnipeg, Minnesota, Dallas, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Dallas, even beginning of January. We get to the Four Nations break, Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota. That's our first time Minnesota made it down into the third. And then come March 7th, Minnesota had dropped to a wild card team and Colorado had moved up. So Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado in the Central became the order at the beginning of March. In the Central, in the Pacific, back in March, it was still Vegas, Edmonton, LA. So LA kind of pushed forward, and Edmonton fell out from the beginning of March to today. As far as the wild card teams go, Minnesota and St. Louis are the wild card teams. Minnesota was the Central team, but the wild cards were Colorado and Utah, and then Colorado and St. Louis at the beginning of the year, January 1st, and Colorado, Calgary at the end of January, Colorado, Calgary at the beginning of February. And then at the Four Nation break, it was Colorado and Vancouver Colorado and Vancouver. Then moving forward to the beginning of March, Minnesota and Vancouver with, I guess there was a tie between Vancouver and St. Louis at 91 points. And I think at that point in time, Vancouver had the better record. So at the beginning of March, there was a tie between Vancouver and St. Louis, and obviously St. Louis made up that slight difference. I didn't take a look at the points. That'd be interesting to compare. But I guess the thing to also look at, when I was doing my calculations for the Preds for whether or not they could make the playoffs, I did have them needing to make 94 or 95 points. The lowest point total in the West is 96. So I was a couple of points off, not that it mattered. In the East, 91 got into the playoffs. So 91, the New Jersey Devils were at 91, the third seed in the Metropolitan, and then the second wild card seed the Canadiens at 91. So in the East, if you had 92 points, you were going to make it into the playoffs. But in the West, you had to have at least 96. So that's how all that played out. So kind of interesting. Kind of interesting how all that worked. But anyway, yeah, I did experiment with changing up how I did my calculations on March 7th, and that resulted in some different things. And so I don't think I will be using that calculations. I wanted to try looking at things slightly differently, and in that particular way, I had Florida on top, then Tampa Bay, Toronto, but both I had Florida, Toronto, Tampa Bay. I had Columbus as the third team in the Metropolitan, and then the wild card teams were the Canadiens and the Rangers. So I don't think that particular looking down here at in the West, I got it right. I did get it right. I got Minnesota and St. Louis as the two wildcard teams in that order. Did project Minnesota at 96 points. They got 97. St. Louis at 94 points. They wound up with 96. So that part of it, pretty good. Pretty good, actually. But I don't know. Totally off in the East. Yeah. Totally off in the East, but that's you don't know. I mean, that's the tough thing about estimating. St. Louis 7-2-1 had an 11-game winning streak. That's not some of the thing you're going to put into your calculations. So, but anyway, yeah. So the NHL playoffs start this Saturday with Winnipeg and Dallas, and we'll go from there. Nothing new for the Preds, although, they just played last night. So I guess over the next couple of weeks, we'll probably see some signings. Don't see, let's see. So Kiefer Bellows and Andreas Englund, Jakob Vrana, England and Vrana were playing. I think they played well enough to get contracts. Kiefer Bellows has played well enough to get a contract. Melter Gaizo. So I think a lot of these people that are in our unrestricted free agents, restricted free agents, Luke Evangelista most notably. Wait a minute, Navran Mutter got a contract, so he shouldn't be listed there anymore. So I expect we'll probably see a lot of these people get signed. Most of them are entry-level contracts, except for Evangelista. And, England's $1 million. Most of them are at $775K. But, so I think we'll probably see some of these with the season being over, see some of these players get signed up, and it looked like there for a while. It was like looking at the transactions in the league. There was 1 week where everybody was getting 2-year contracts. All these people, 2-year, sign this person to a 2-year entry-level contract, that person to a 2-level entry-level contract. And the Preds did a couple of that. I guess we'll see how it goes from here on out. But anyway, that is the current state of play here on April 17th, 2025. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll hopefully see some good hockey this weekend. And welcome to the playoffs. Welcome to the playoffs. Thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.